This is absolutely wild. I mean, Toyota's CEO or now chairman, the guy, I don't know if he's senile, but he's making some claims that have been totally debunked. To be honest, he's been kind of laughed at by international media. He thinks that people agree with him and people think that he's right, but actually, even the most car publications out there that are really not into EVs, they're even kind of mocking some of his statements. He claims that if Toyota had built 9 million EVs in Japan, the environmental impact would have been far worse than if they'd built them as hybrids. Of course, these claims have been completely debunked, but the president of Toyota, he's not interested in facts. Hello, my friends. Welcome to the channel. I'm Sam Evans. You're watching the Electric Viking. Thank you for supporting the channel, supporting the electric movement and renewable energy movement. Obviously, for me, solar, batteries, wind, and EVs are the solution to everything. And that's not based on my personal feelings. It's based on facts. I love facts on this channel, and I love exposing people who are clearly trying to manipulate. They're trying to manipulate people, and unfortunately, it's working. A recent study done last week says that 47% of Americans, Australians, and Europeans literally believe that EV battery fires are far more likely to happen than internal combustion fires, and they're actually likely to happen. There's lots of myths the industry has, unfortunately, having to deal with. This is another one of them. Toyota's chairman, Akio Toyoda, recently spoke to, only a few days ago, US publication Automotive News. The interview has been published on Toyota's in-house outlet, the Toyota Times. Now, I should mention that Toyota has spent more money than almost every company in the world, including fossil fuel companies, on lobbying against adoption of EVs. And that's not my personal opinion. It's simply a fact that's been reported on thousands of times. Toyota himself, whose predecessors actually started the company, explained what he claims is the massive impact its hybrids have had on the environment. Now, I will debunk these claims if you stick with me and explain why on multiple levels they're utterly nonsensical. We have sold some 27 million hybrids. Now, these hybrids that Toyota have sold, he didn't mention, use almost all of them nickel metal hydride batteries. They're very heavy batteries, and many of those batteries aren't recycled because, well, they're relatively small and they're not worth that much money. In fact, very small. These hybrids have had the same impact, he claims, as 9 million EVs on the road. Well, then he goes on to contradicting himself by saying something completely contrary to that fact. But anyway, he says, no car company has yet to sell 9 million electric cars, though Tesla and BYD are close, which in theory, according to Toyota, means that Toyota has done more to cut global emissions than anyone in the world. Now, obviously, Toyota has sold more internal combustion engine cars in the world than any car company in the last 4 years. Toyota broke it down even further. He said if Toyota had built 9 million EVs in Japan, the environmental impact would have been much worse than the hybrids. But if we were to have made 9 million EVs in Japan, he said, it would have actually increased the carbon emissions, not reduced them. That is because Japan relies on the thermal power plants for electricity. Now, he's also claiming that to manufacture those EV batteries, there'd be a lot of emissions involved, right? This obviously ignores the fact that with electric cars, the batteries last far longer than what we previously thought. In fact, on average, battery packs are lasting for about 500,000 kilometers, which is a lot more than an internal combustion engine. But here's the thing. Once you've mined that lithium or sodium or lithium iron phosphate batteries, which don't use any nickel or cobalt, once you've mined those products, though, you don't need to mine for them again. Those batteries are worth huge amounts of money, and all EV batteries will be recycled, and they are getting recycled, or if they're not recycled, they're used in a second life. Now, if you think that EV batteries do die quickly, well, that's completely wrong because, for example, what are considered the worst batteries in the industry, the Nissan Leaf batteries, this is basically a widely believed reality, even they are used in second life. The airport in Rome, in Italy, it's using hundreds and hundreds of second life Nissan Leaf batteries, right, to power the airport. Literally, the airport is not going to use any power from fossil fuels whatsoever. So the truth is these batteries in EVs, the claims for the intensity of how much carbon it takes to create these batteries, it's not taking into account the fact that you never need to mine for those materials ever again. They're going to last you thousands of years. Once you've mined the lithium, once you've mined the nickel, once you've mined the cobalt, you don't need to mine for those things ever again. So Toyota says that the reason their hybrids are much better is because the production of batteries and electric car components that need rare earth metals are very energy intensive when mining, refining, shipping, and the rest are taken into account. Now, obviously, they're ignoring the fact that lithium iron phosphate batteries, which are what are predominantly used in China now, don't use any rare earths. But anyhow, Toyota says that post-production, where an EV is driven, makes a huge difference to its emissions with the energy mix of the country or whether charged with rooftop solar impacting its emissions. So they went on to say that the best way to reduce emissions worldwide is through a variety of technologies and not just battery electric vehicles, which is obviously a completely false statement. The company has been very vocal and critical about EVs, and it's been vocal that EVs aren't the answer. When the term carbon neutrality became popular, they said, we said as a company, the enemy is carbon. We have to focus on what we can do immediately to reduce carbon dioxide. This is the basis of our decision. It has not changed and will not change, says Toyota. Now, I should mention Toyota believe the future of the automotive industry has nothing to do with EVs. They say that by 2040, the majority of the automotive industry worldwide will actually be powered by hydrogen-powered cars. They have maintained this on many occasions when asked by the media, are they sticking with this? And they say, yes, this is the way everything will go. We should look at all options and work in all directions. As a company, we have been very consistent in saying what we're fighting against is carbon dioxide. Now, I personally don't know how Toyota are fighting against carbon dioxide. If anything, I think they're doing the complete opposite to that. Now, I should also point that an analysis by Carbon Brief revealed on the 8th of April 2025 said that 60 countries have dramatically cut plans to build coal plants, either completely, and many of them have stopped using coal altogether within the last 5 years. The world is phasing out coal. So Toyota's claims about what the cars are using to be driven with, that is completely false for a number of reasons because it's also been debunked. Here's the thing. EVs, they are around 90 to 95% efficient. So the power coming from a power plant that's charging your EV, even if it doesn't come from your solar, even if it comes from a power plant, even from a coal power plant, it's still much, much better for the environment and better for you than it is to fill your car with gasoline or diesel, petrol or diesel. Remember, when you burn those carbons in your internal combustion car, you are polluting where you live. You're polluting your city, yeah? And that is a lot worse than basically the coal power plants, if there are any in your country. Many countries have completely phased it out, but if there are any, it's still a lot worse because usually those coal power plants are not near human beings, right? And usually now they have much better ways of capturing the emissions from coal power plants than they did in the past, meaning you're less likely to die from those emissions from a coal power plant, far less likely than you are from the emissions from your diesel or gasoline powered car, which we know are very clearly linked to cancer. Now, the other thing is that EVs are responsible for far fewer overall emissions over their life cycle than either a hybrid from Toyota or an internal combustion engine car. It's also worth pointing out that the batteries that Toyota used in all of their hybrids, almost all of them, were nickel metal hydride batteries. They have a higher percentage of nickel than any other type of battery in the world. And considering we now know that dirty nickel is mined in Indonesia, and the truth is that is causing economic devastation, and some of that nickel is finding its way into EVs apparently. Well, we now know that actually these batteries Toyota still manufactures today that are very, very high in nickel content are actually not a good thing. If Toyota was to change that and use lithium iron phosphate batteries like they are doing so for the EVs that they now contract manufacture in China, they use lithium iron phosphate batteries from BYD, then that would be a good solution. But Toyota is not really doing that. Some of their cars now use lithium ion batteries, but a lot of them still use nickel, basically high nickel content batteries. Now, regardless of all of this, Toyota's claims on this idea that EVs are more polluting, 9 million EVs would pollute more than 20 something, 27 million hybrid cars, is absolutely preposterous. And obviously, these guys know this is false, but they also know that hundreds of millions of people own Toyotas. And those people, a lot of them are brand fans for Toyota, and they will believe anything that their leader, their great leader, the CEO or the former CEO, now the president of Toyota, and the president of the Japanese automotive industry will tell them. It's because they want to believe it. You own something, you get told something, and it sounds positive, and it reinforces your worldview. Wow, yeah, that's why I bought the car. Yeah, that's why. Yeah. And you start to believe it. You tell other people, and Toyota knows that this works. It's propaganda, complete propaganda coming from this company. So please, if you know someone who could benefit from this message, please share it with them. That's also a way that we can get that message out there and try to counteract this propaganda from Toyota. Thanks for watching.